Hi, Susan B. Anthony. Good to have you here.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Okay, so we'll be doing like a quick interview about yourself and the movements and the positive impacts you made on society. By the way, I'm a huge fan of all the things you do.
Thank you so much. That's great. I really appreciate it.
Oh, no way. Okay, so first, tell me a little bit about your early life and your backstory.
Of course. So I was born in Adams, Massachusetts on February 15th of 1820. My full name is actually Susan Brownell Anthony, but you can call me Susan B. Anthony, of course. I was a pioneer crusader for the women's suffrage movement in the United States. And I was also one of the main people that helped pass the 19th Amendment, which gave women the right to vote. I died, sadly, in Rochester, New York on March 13th, 1906, because of heart failure and pneumonia.
Very cool. Now another question. Who was the most influential person to you as a child, or in general?
To be honest, I did not have a single person that inspired me in my years as a child, but I was greatly inspired by all of the social causes that I worked for. I also grew up in a Quaker family and greatly adopted the culture those people had. I moved to New York and studied in a Quaker school near Philadelphia. And in the 1840s, my family started to fight to end slavery, which was where I met Frederick Douglass. And this person was also a great inspiration to my fighting.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I also heard about Frederick Douglass, and I'm also very interested in the movements he made for liberty and equality towards African Americans. Very cool. So, what are some of your personal interests?
So, as you know, my personal interests include, first of all, fighting for the equality of women and African American slaves. But outside of that, I also really enjoy writing and teaching. In my time, I wrote one book called The History of Women's Suffrage, which I wrote along with other women that were also fighting for women's rights. Obviously, I am known for fighting for women's rights, but I also fought for the abolitionist movement along with Frederick Douglass. I also worked as a teacher in my hometown of Massachusetts.
That's cool. That's very cool. I didn't know you were a teacher. Or, well, I heard about your works and your book, but I did not know there was a huge passion of yours.
I really enjoyed it.
Very good. So at the time, access to education was considered a luxury for many women, and very few of them could have it. So what was your story with education, and like tell me about that topic.
Yes, so fortunately, I received some education when my family moved to New York. As I said, I studied at a Quaker school near Pennsylvania, and I also fought for the University of Rochester to start accepting women into the school in order to receive a proper education.
Very cool. Very cool. I heard the University of Rochester is a very good university. I might be going there.
I would really recommend it. It's a great school.
Very good. So obviously you made very big accomplishments throughout your life, but in your point of view, what were your biggest accomplishments?
In my opinion, my major accomplishments were probably helping to pass the 19th Amendment, which we know that gave women the right to vote. And I would also say that it would be being the president of the National American Women's Suffrage Association.
Very good. So a question before was who motivated you? Now, what motivated you? And was there a specific movement you could tell us about that made you realize that it was time to speak out, like something that fired a light bulb in your head to start, um, I don't know, fighting for women's rights?
Yes, so I would say that what motivated me the most in the beginning was the fight against slavery, which my family was a part of. And an event that made me want to start fighting for women's rights even further was my incarceration, because I tried to vote when women were not allowed to do so. and I was given a fine that I shouldn't have been given. And this event marked my full dedication to start fighting for women's rights to vote.
Very cool. Yeah, I would also say that that would be a turning point in my point of view if I was incarcerated from something that was unfair and unjust.
Accurate.
Now, what were some of your biggest regrets? And do you have any critics of your works?
Personally, I don't think I would have any big regrets from any point in my life since I believe that everything I did was based on a good cause, at least from what I believe was good. And like going to vote when it was not allowed to, or starting the National Women's Suffrage Association along with Elizabeth Cady Stanton. These were things that, yes, were under risk, as there were obviously many critics for my work, and no man at the time wanted women to be equal or superior to them. These critics were also what gave me my motivation to keep on fighting in order for women to be part of society and not be set aside. So I would say that although these were challenges that were might have been hard to overcome, they they were part of the path in achieving women's rights.
Very cool. Yeah, I would also think that you would have very little regrets in your life because you're a very brave woman and probably make almost every good choice that there was.
Thank you.
Now, what are your opinions on the Declaration of Independence?
I think that the Declaration of Independence is something necessary to get a country together, definitely, but it has many flaws. For example, probably one of the most important ones of these flaws is the phrase in which Jefferson wrote, "All men are created equal." And this phrase is supposed to involve all of equality. However, it only includes rich white males, not all men and women of any race and color, which I thought was very wrong on his part.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Now, are you satisfied with your impact on society? Be honest.
Without being cocky, I would say I am very much satisfied with my impact on society. Although I do believe that there are still some things that need to be perfected across the world that don't bring total equality to women and other individuals.
Very good. Very good. Now, since so many activists choose and still choose till this day to commit violence against people who disagree with them, why were you peaceful when you protested? And how did you maintain such faith and courage when you continued to fight non-violently, which is a key trait of yours and your movement?
Well, I remain peaceful because I believe that including violence might just lead to worse things, and it might lead to bring a negative point of view towards your person and the belief that you are fighting for. Not to mention, I did not want to give the men the opportunity to categorize me as crazy or unprofessional due to any act of violence, since that would have been enough for them to disregard me and my ideas completely, and I did not want to give them that chance. I maintained my faith for the views which I was fighting for because these were things that I was really passionate about. And I was able to give everything I had in order for them to become a reality and to really make an impact on my society.
Very good, very good. Yeah, that's very common for people to maintain faith on what they believe is right. Like for example, I don't know if you heard about the events that happened last year in Bolivia, that people were very passionate about something that wasn't right. So they did everything on their will in order to basically get rid of a problem.
I saw that. I saw that. I think it's very important to express your voice.
Yeah, very interesting. Now, in your opinion, what are some examples in heroes in our society today, and who might you classify as the villains if
So,
you dare to choose them as villains?
yes. So I would not say this is a definite answer because it's from my perspective. But some examples of heroes in our society that are alive today for me would be those with a kind and brave heart who are fighting for the greater good of others and not only themselves. Some examples would be Malala Yousafzai, Emma Gonzalez, Greta Thunberg, Barack Obama, and many, many others. Now, in terms of the villain, saying someone is a villain might not be entirely accurate since I believe even those with a lot of evil inside of them do still have some good. However, I have seen some people whose close-minded ideals remind me of the unpleasant individuals I interacted with in my time. The first one that comes to mind is Donald Trump, simply because he recently pardoned me in front of the whole nation, and this was an event that I know many people found controversial. And luckily, people nowadays are more conscious and they spoke out against this foolish act. Since I personally believed I shouldn't have been pardoned because I was not a criminal. I was just speaking out for what was right. So I would say that that is a man who simply believes he knows too much for his own good.
Great. So you mentioned Trump as a villain. So what are your opinions on the American democracy today or in the past?
So my opinions on American democracy today is that people really need to think about who they elect as a leader of the United States. I believe that Donald Trump has not been a good influence to the government of the United States for the views that he has on certain problems that have been going on recently. And I believe that it has also changed very positively by including people from all groups of society, such as women and African Americans.
Yes, as I heard before, that you included plenty of women and African Americans, and most importantly, Barack Obama, who was the first African American president to take part in such a huge country as the United States, as we know it today.
Yes, I was
So
excited about that.
good thing you mentioned it. It's very important. So extending from the last question, if you're alive today, would you believe we have achieved equality you fought for? And if not, what changes would you have made?
I would say that we have come a long way in our fight for equality. However, we also have a long way to go. I believe a good way to describe this would be by referring to Obama's speech on a more perfect union. We have to keep moving forward and fighting for what's right, even though it might be hard to maintain faith in times of injustice and pain. I would encourage this mindset that lets us know that we can always have a more perfect union, a more perfect society, and that our work is not over, nor will it ever be.
Yeah, and it's very popular today to see women fighting for their rights and their injustices, which they live for every day. So good thing you mentioned that. Now, what is an important lesson that you learned you would like to share with people today?
An important lesson that I learned, which I will share with people today, is that they need to keep on fighting for what they believe is right and speak out against what is wrong. Even if it might seem radical, like a radical thought now, it might be the next step we need to take in order to live in a world with more fairness and goodness. Sometimes it might be confusing to know if you are on the good side or bad side of history, but more often than not, this is something that can be felt on your gut. So I would just tell the people to follow what they believe is truly right and not what others want them to believe is right.
Very good point. Very good point, Daniela. Oh, sorry. Um, Susan B. Anthony. um, well, good thing that I had you today in the show. Um, Thank you for your time and hope you bring a lot of joy to the people that are watching today.
Thank you. I was really happy to be here, and I'm really glad that there's people like you who are open minded and willing to hear out other people with different ideas. Thank you.
Well, thank you.